This book was published in the U.S. in 1995, and then in Japan in 97. And it was actually my PhD research from 1992 for the degree in East-West psychology. So it's quite kind of out there for a degree in psychology. But I met and interviewed 25 people who all came to the conclusion from various experiences and what they were told and piecing things together that their soul origin is of a higher density. These could be called old souls. People use the terms walk-in, wanderer, star person, star-born, star-child, indigo, crystal children. That's even a subset or a portion of this. And I basically talked to them and then detailed their path to coming to that conclusion, how it affected their life personally, in terms of relationships, in terms of life purpose, how it ended up becoming a portion of their perspective in this lifetime, and how then that relates to the present changes of consciousness and energy in society on Earth today. So there are two main groups there, walk-ins and wanderers, of these people. The first, walk-in, I found is less common, and interestingly, there's a source called the raw material, the Law of One, which has been very important for my own thinking and understanding. They indicated that Abraham Lincoln was a walk-in, and that this was, and to me, this is a classic example of how it works when it really is so. Some people feel they're walk-ins, and I'm not sure really they are. Lincoln was supposedly, according to the source Ra, which is an extraterrestrial group, quite older than humanity and very clear in their presentation. Lincoln was in the middle of the presidency. He was totally depressed. He was going through a dark night of the soul, which is something we might talk about later. And he wished to help the Union, the country, and yet felt he couldn't do it. And it was therefore arranged in the hours of sleep that his soul would be allowed to exit early from the body and allow in a benevolent, higher dimensional soul to take over and live the rest of the life. It's not a form of possession, because it's not an example of two different souls jockeying for control, but a person who's basically leaving the vehicle and letting another driver take over. And I think that's the classic example of what walk-in is. It's a soul exchange voluntarily, no fear, no issues of domination or control, very specifically for world service. And it's a rare case because karma is being set aside. The case of and so that's the first thing. If you want to ask about walk-in, we can go into that. Maybe, yeah. I mean, it could be their first time. Newcomers or first-time souls here are often wanderers in that category, because a wanderer is basically an old soul born here or having a series of lives on Earth, born in the ordinary way, going through their lives, accumulating and clearing karma, and here for the purpose of service. The walk-in usually has more experience in handling the details of their mission, or any mission of service. They basically had a kind of a death and rebirth type process. The people who I interviewed that felt that they were, and may well be, all were at the end of their rope in some way, with physical illness or psychological distress or deep discouragement about their life. And there was then an abrupt change, and that led them to believe, a change of consciousness, change of energy. And they are a little bit like newborn children, but that happens midway in the incarnation. And there's a distance from the early psychological problems, and there's also a great rapid awakening into a sense of potential and a desire to be of service to others. Now that also happens with a near-death experience many times. But yeah, there's basically a rapid shift in consciousness from dark to light. Well, first of all, I think it's actually quite rare. I think that there are communities of people online and around the world who feel that they're walk-ins, and I'm not really sure that they are. And meaning, it's easy to imagine that a rapid shift in consciousness could be another soul coming in. It could be descent of energy from higher self. It could be simply, a self-generated awakening that doesn't involve another soul and takes many years to integrate. A person who feels newborn spiritually, but truly in their thinking and their feeling, and it seems to be proven by time, is not who they used to be for the positive, and they're deeply involved in service to the world, could be a walk-in. It's very subjective, and it's hard to know. Some of the people I interviewed a few years later felt that they were not walk-ins, actually, which is interesting. They came to believe that it was just some kind of rapid, spontaneous spiritual awakening. Then they found that they still had the same issues that they had attributed to the other soul who was in this body, but it was still them. So walk-in is a little woo-woo quality to it, or a little glamour sometimes associated with it for people. And it can be a way of dissociating from your own psychological challenges.